Hi, everyone. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about how and why crowns fit or don't fit. But before I do, I would like to show you a picture of my granddaughter who's about 9 months old. Her name is Noelle, and she is so cute. I just can't stand it. And every time I look at this picture, I just have to laugh. I'm sure many of you know exactly how I feel. Okay, so years ago, it seemed that there was a popular idea, and what we were taught in dental school, that crowns margin should be made with a feather edge. It seemed that at the time, this was the philosophy because we didn't have the advanced tools and technology we have today. I, and probably a lot of you, were taught to make a 3-degree angle all around the tooth. So you had a 6-degree convergent angle. And that was supposed to give you plenty of retention and resistance form just from the frictional fit of the casting. Well, it may have seemed like a good fit, but what wasn't realized at that time, because we didn't have the technology that we have now, I mean, we didn't have loupes or microscopes, but the fit really was kind of yucky. And I don't know about you all, but it usually was below the gum line, which, of course, we know today that that's a kind of a no-no. We try to keep the margins above the gum line. Anyway, as time went on, the technology improved. And back then, though, there was a research group that did a study. They were in Norway or Sweden or one of those countries. Anyway, they were commissioned to find out the exact amount of retention provided by this then standard crown prep with a feather edge. What they did was they used horse teeth, and they prepped them to perfect measurements, perfect convergence. They took no impressions at that time. They were going to eliminate as many errors as they could, so they actually waxed up the castings directly on these horse teeth. When the castings were made with a feather edge, a very interesting thing resulted, and that is that when they looked at the fit of these castings, they weren't seated. Matter of fact, no matter how hard they tried to push them or hammer them down, they wouldn't seat all the way. So, because they wouldn't seat all the way, of course, this created a problem. And the result is you get an open margin. And with gold, of course, you can burnish it, but that didn't help you with a porcelain fused to metal crown. So one of the scientists, he said that the errors were so big because they're using horse teeth, and human teeth were much smaller, right? I mean, with smaller teeth, they wouldn't be so obvious. So they repeated the procedure on human teeth, but they took impressions this time. They poured them up and they made models. However, the result was the same when they were looked at closely. So another thing was that all these crowns, on the horse teeth especially, when they tried to pull them off, with one of those machines, there was no retention at all. And it disproved the theory about friction retention on these things. I mean, they popped right off with no problem. So the question became, where does the retention come from? What they discovered was that when they cemented the crowns, they stuck on pretty good. There was a lot of retention there. It was very, very high. And so, of course, obviously now the answer was that the cement is what provides the retention. Of course, you can't look at some crown preps you see where you have a problem because you don't have enough tooth, and the crown is prepped with, it looks like a pyramid. Those kind of things are difficult to deal with, and sometimes there's problems with retention in those cases. The crowns keep popping off. In any case, as time went on, GICs were introduced, and it was discovered that retention strength was approximately equal for both zinc phosphate and the glass ionomers. The bottom line here is that resistance and retention comes from the cement filling into the diamond or burr scratches in the tooth. So those should be left there. And in addition, of course, the inside of the casting, because the impression would also have scratches on the intaglio surface. So now the question, though, becomes, if the scratches are a problem, how do we get the crown to seat all the way? Well, I mean, there's no way you're going to match up the scratches inside the crown with the scratches on the tooth. So that's going to hold it up from seating all the way, if you can imagine that situation. Well, the answer is pretty simple. All you have to do is apply dye spacer, which most labs do routinely, right? The problem is that they don't do it correctly. The correct way, which I learned a long time ago, is to put 5 coats of dye spacer on the preparation, of course not on the margin, but they must be layered, and each coat must be allowed to dry before the next coat was applied. If this is done properly, this will give you a space of somewhere between 50 and 100 microns, which is perfect for plenty of space for the cement, and your crown should go to place with no problem. Except there's one caveat, and that is, what about the margin? There's going to be scratches on that, and you might be able to slide it down to the margin, but those little scratches in the margin and in the, that the crown is not going to go down all the way. So what do you do about that? Well, it was found that if you smooth off the margin, then you got a perfectly fitting crown that was virtually it was undetectable. And so how do you smooth it off? Well, if you have a 90-degree bevel, you could use hand instruments, I suppose. But I found 2 burrs. One's called a BC3 and the other one's a BC4. One of them has a 45-degree point at the end for a bevel, I guess. The other one is a flat for a butt joint. And the only place you can buy those is at Pearson Dental. It's the only dental supplier that I have found that has them. So what do you do for a chamfer margin? Well, at the moment, what I'm doing is trying out 30 fluted round end cylinder burrs. When I've used those in the past, they don't do a heck of a lot, so they may work out pretty well. And but that's the secret. And if you can do that, your crown will just go down and slam shut like a door on a safe. Okay, so that brings us to the point about milled crowns. Because with all these advances in technology, I think the statistics on this is that most of the crowns are being made by being milled and not cast. Oh yeah, there's still a lot of porcelain fused to metal crowns being made. But a machine like the CEREC can mill you out a crown in 15 minutes. But of course you have to scan the prep and put it in the machine, then the margin is marked. And after the margin is marked, they can dial in the amount of space you want from the crown to the tooth. So if you want 50 microns or 70 microns or whatever you want, they can put it in there. So when it's milled out, that space will be there and you don't even need dye spacer. So speaking of scanners, and I'm sure most of you know about, there's these handheld scanners that you can use on the patient, and they are just really, really slick. The prep is scanned, the opposing arch is scanned, the contacts, make sure to get them, and then scan from the side to get the occlusion with the teeth together. All this information is then, by just one push of the button, sent to the lab electronically. You don't have to write out a prescription. You don't have to box up the impressions. You don't have to pour any impressions. The technician gets all the information, and it's done just like that. And then takes that information and makes the crown. He mills it out on this machine. Really, and the CEREC has been upgraded so much. It used to be like 4 hours or whatever, but now they mill that sucker out in 15 to 20 minutes. I just wanted to finish up about Pennsylvania. About 20 years, I sold my practice, And by then, I had learned pretty well and practice was in good shape. But I moved to Florida. There, I had to start from scratch all over, but wasn't any problem. I knew I had the answers, and within a very short time, my practice was going gangbusters. And so when I sold that practice, I moved up here to South Dakota, and I work on an Indian reservation. And it's a different practice because the Native Americans here don't pay for any dental services, so uh, don't have a problem with that. And that gave me a lot of free time. So I have spent the last 9 or 10 years learning all about digital marketing and getting new patients for other dentists. So we've gotten pretty good at it. And if you need new patients, I can help you out with that. I can teach you how, or I can do it for you. So if you're at all interested and would just like to find out more, you can go to my website. It's called wantdentalpatients.com. That's wantdentalpatients.com to get more information or schedule a free, no obligation call. And we can chat and I'll answer your questions and see if we're a fit. And I guess that's about it for this video. But before I sign off, here's my granddaughter again with her giving you all the thumbs up. And I just have to laugh. I think that's so cute. Anyway, thanks. Good luck. See you soon.